Hey, you're listening to Don't Lie to Your Life Coach podcast with Kim Arrington. I'm Kim Arrington. I'm a life coach, a weight loss coach, an author, and a badass passionate about helping you connect back to your most authentic self. Join me here each week so I can coach you on how to think all those juicy thoughts that get you feeling your absolute best and taking some big ass action. Coaching has changed my life, and it can change your life too. I'm here to give you real life solutions to create a life you'll love. Because the truth is, boo, you ain't just got problems, you got options. Hey, I've got a question for y'all. Have you subscribed to this fantastic podcast called Don't Lie to Your Life Coach with Kim Arrington? Have you subscribed? What does that mean, Kim? That means if you're in Apple, if you're in Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, wherever you are, you're just going to go and locate that little subscribe button. And that means the podcast is waiting for you. It tells you when it's there, it's waiting for you. And that helps my podcast numbers. Yay. Also, remember, every single podcast is on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and click that bell so you can be notified when those podcasts on YouTube, which are the videos. So you can see me in video, or you can listen to me on your favorite podcast provider. You have options. I talked to a client today and she was like, girl, you told me I had options on a podcast and I believed it. You always have options. Okay. So, I always start with what's going on. You can hear it in my voice. Today is the Rona, day 10. I went on a fabulous trip to Colorado. Y'all, I cannot describe it if I wanted to, but I'm going to try. It was just incredible. Parties. But before I left, I was like, I dreamed I got the Rona. Okay. I dreamed I got COVID and was talking to a lovely woman. Will not name her because I'm going to go see her. We really connected. We were talking and she basically said, she talked about, COVID recovery. And I was like, oh, when did you have COVID? In the back of my mind, I was like, she's totally going to give me COVID. And she was like, oh, I haven't had COVID. But she emailed. When I was on the plane, I was coughing a little bit. Of course, I had in my KN95 mask. I don't know why I can't say KN95 mask, but and I was suspicious. I came back on Monday, took a test. I was negative, told my husband, yeah, we can't sleep in the same bed. And he agreed. And then took it Tuesday. Got an email from the woman saying, I'm so sorry. I connected with you. I liked you so much. Here's what happened. I've tested positive. And I took my test and within 30 seconds, it was positive. So it was very mild, no sore throat, no tightness in the chest, no headache, a fever that lasted very, very, like maybe an hour or less, off and on. 1 day of exhaustion. Pretty much I had the best case scenario you could have with COVID. It did manifest mainly as a sinus, kind of like sinusy, but I'm here. I just wanted to test negative, and today I tested negative. I actually had a really bad day 7 and told myself I wasn't going to test for 2 days because I stayed in the house, unlike so many other people. Also, I have the privilege to stay in the house. So I want to make sure I say that. Some people have to make difficult choices. I did not. But it was really tough to stay in the house. No, it wasn't. At first, it wasn't tough. And then day 7, it was tough. So I've been out and about today and it has felt good because I got my negative test. Okay. So today we are going to talk about grief. And this is the first podcast that I've recorded in a while. Remember, y'all, I like a running start, which means that I recorded a bunch of podcasts prior to deciding I was going to have a podcast because I wanted to work through some stuff. And I for damn sure didn't want to be recording podcasts week to week. I don't even got that kind of trust in myself. So, but I will tell you that a couple of things happen when I know it's time for me to do something new. I kept seeing y'all talk about on Facebook and Instagram, losing people, okay? Because we're talking about grief. And I mean, it was kind of like aunts and uncles and cousins and moms or people in caretaking journeys. My clients, were talking about losing people. And as a matter of fact, I actually reached out to a client to ask her if I could use her name. And I don't think oh, cool. Absolutely. Great. Yes, I will. So I'm going to tell you about my client, Jen. By the way, I love Jen. Jen, we're going to talk about her grief journey. We're going to talk about, I'm so glad she said thank you. Of course, she's an open book. And I really was able to get in there and really help her on her grief journey. And she's just says this is the best decision she ever made. I have a grief PhD. I do not have a PhD, y'all. I'm saying that kind of in a funny way. My father, was killed in a car accident, head-on collision with a drunk driver 6 days after my 10th birthday. He walked out the door and he never walked back in. And that grief profoundly shaped me. I don't know, I just got an image in my head of like being a stone in a lake, and just like that water over time just wears you and changes you. That's what grief did to me. I wish that I did get therapy and counseling. I just did not know. This is the first thing I want y'all to know. In your grief journey, I was just talking about this to a friend today. In your grief journey, you will get to a level, but you may have to revisit that journey over and over decades, over years. That sounds daunting, but shit, you're worth it. To revisit something, you are freaking worth it. Okay. So you don't just check off the box on grief and it's done. Grief can come back. It is not linear. It's not like a line. Grief is all over the place. It can come back. And instead of that being daunting to you, when you realize that that's just how grief works, then you can accept that. And when it needs to find you, it will find you. Okay. So let's talk more about that. I want to talk to you a little bit about Jen. Jen reached out to me months before we started working together because I actually was on a grief journey of having left a job that wasn't right for me, but it was confusing. And it's like when you're really excited about something, this is a big thing about grief, right? You're really freaking excited about something and then you're not. Well, that's what happened in this job. So she reached out and I didn't contact her. God, it might have been almost a year later. It was a long time later. And she was like, I want to know about your coaching. She talked to me about a couple of things that were going on, and I'm not going to talk about that, but in particular, she talked about her father and a diagnosis that she knew was eventually going to be a terminal diagnosis and her wanting to work through it. So we created kind of a loose leaf grief plan. So a grief plan is where you actually pre-think about how you want to deal with your grief. You come up with almost not goals is not the right word, but markers of ways you're going to deal with grief. And we did that. We looked at some other areas of her life, but we really focused on helping her work through how she was going to lose one of the most important people in her life. And we worked and worked, and my God, Jen was so inspiring on that journey. We talked about how, and this is one of the things I said to her, two things. I talked to her about closing her garden gate so that in this process of her dealing with the grief of losing a parent, she was going to have to, at least temporarily, close out all the noise, all the needs, all the demands of other people. Now, she didn't have toddlers. She didn't have people who literally relied on her to live, but that all the things that ailed her were going to have to take a back seat for her to go very deep in how she felt about what was going on with her dad. And that was a new concept. I'd be like, you got to close the garden gate on that. And what that means is the people are going to have to take care of themselves. You may have to say to them, hey, she had to say to some folks, I can't do this. I can't help with this. I believe in your ability to figure this out. And they did. She wasn't the person who rushed in to help in this situation with work or this situation with family. She shut the shit down and she really focused on herself. And it changed everything. One of the things you want to consider when you're having a grief journey is profound directed focus on something actually allows you to move through that thing easier. So that's what we did. And we preemptively thought about things that she needed, journaling, time to herself at the lake, things she enjoyed. We highlighted those, Netflix or reading a book or being on her porch. And it helped her so much. Okay. So a grief plan. And, sometimes we don't have the ability to know that someone is continuing, that it's a progressive and that it's not happened. Sometimes grief is sudden, but even thinking through how you would deal with, like I hear people say, I don't know what I'm going to do when my mama passes away. I know what I'm going to do because I've thought through it. And what I'm never going to say about anyone passing away is that it will end me. It won't end me. It actually could begin me. It could begin me to look at things in my life, to figure out things in my life. And one of the things about my mom, my relationship with my mother, is there is nothing left unsaid. We have had difficult conversations. We have had conversations about how much we love each other. We have agreed, we have disagreed, we have turned over every stone. And that allows me to know that when she transitions, or if I transition first, that has been done. That doesn't get in the way of the grief of all the things that weren't said. Also, don't kick your own ass about all the things that weren't said, because you can still say them now. The things you feel like were unsaid, you can say them now. I have another client whose mother, she was caretaking for her mother. She passed away and she felt like she hadn't said a lot of things. And then she found letters where she did say those things. She didn't consciously remember, but those letters showed up for a reason. Because let me tell you something, my belief is our relationships never end. So those people who transitioned are still very much in our lives, guiding us, helping us, showing us to us. Okay. I might hit on the 7 stages of grief a little bit later. I got to go into my Slack because I don't have them all memorized, but you know what? I'm going to do that now. So the 7 stages of grief. And, there's all this talk about the 5 stages of grief. And but I like the 7 stages. I'm not going to go deeply into these. You want me to go deeply into them? You better go to kimarrington.com and sign up for my coaching wait list, and we can go through these. But I'm going to go through this. This is really helpful for Jen in particular, or, other clients I've worked with, to locate where they were in the journey. And the reason why that helped, because I'm not going to go through and tell you all the things, right? But the reason why that helped is that that even though your grief journey feels very individual, it feels like it's its own thing, grief journeys do share universal themes that we all share, so go to the right place. The ability to know that, right? And to know that other people have been through that might not feel good to you. But for me, sometimes it's what's the word I want to say? Stabilizing thing to know that I'm not the first one who's doing this grief. that grief has happened to other people. And for me to locate where I am on that journey really, really helps me. Okay, we're going to get to it. All right, 7 stages of grief. Shock and denial. Stage 2, pain and guilt. Stage 3, anger and bargaining. Stage 4, depression, loneliness, and reflection. Stage 5, upward turn. Stage 6, reconstruction. Stage 7, acceptance and hope. And it's a circle. You might be in anger and bargaining, and you might skip down to acceptance or hope. Or you might be at pain and guilt and go all the way back in shock and denial. But there are 7 stages of grief that we can look at, okay? Let's talk about some other things, okay? What does it mean when someone says, feel your feelings? We hear that all the time. Hell, I say it all the time. Feeling your feelings may not feel. I remember when vulnerability was not my thing and I didn't know feeling my feelings, I couldn't feel. I had felt the feelings of everybody else for so long. I had to learn how to adjust and feel my own feelings. And it was a multi-year process, right? I feel them now. But feeling your feelings means that no matter what comes up, you decide to feel it. So for instance, I was in a situation a couple of months ago where someone really humiliated me in front of other people. And it took me back in that moment to another time that I had been humiliated and how we try to save face and quickly switch out of that. Now, in that moment, I didn't feel safe to feel how I felt, but later I did. And I was like, I don't want to switch out of that anymore. Had I needed to step away from the table, had I needed to look at him and say, don't talk to me like that. And I said some things back to him, feeling a feeling. But the truth is that I had to feel the embarrassment, the shame, what I could have said, the anger, the sadness. And I let myself do that. The shock, the dismay, all of the things. And that did not happen in a week or a day. I broke off a little piece and felt it until now. But I allowed myself to step through all of that. Another example is in, a young man who I worked with died by suicide. And I cried every single day for about 2 weeks. In the morning, I just would cry. I would sob. I cried for myself. I cried because I was so sad he wasn't here. I cried for a future that I knew that he wouldn't have in the same way. I cried for his family. I cried, I bawled, and I sobbed at that funeral. It is the funeral, I'm just thinking about it now and I'm feeling it. It is the funeral that I have cried at the most. I knew I did not feel ashamed of my public display of emotion. I needed to fucking cry, and I did. As a matter of fact, I often say, and this is what, sometimes you just need to cry. Sometimes you need to cry. Crying can be a cure. It can be curative. You need to cry. Sometimes we are trying so hard to resist the feeling that we don't allow ourselves to do exactly what we do. And so what I think about crying as is like, when we drink, you drink too much. And if you throw up, you'll feel better. You try so hard, you resist throwing up because you don't want to, because like throwing up ain't great. But then you throw up and you instantly feel better. To me, that's what crying is. I told that to a client yesterday. She told me about what I call an incendiary event, something that happens that you don't expect, something that freaks you the hell out. And she mentioned that she hadn't been able to cry, and she had, she cried more, but crying felt like a sign of weakness. And I said, well, there's your information. You need to cry as much as you need to cry, because there's no weakness there. So allowing your feelings and pushing away resistance in a gentle but consistent way. is your path through grief. Okay. Take all the time you need. People may not be by your side for that whole time. Grief makes people fucking anxious. They want you to hurry up and get through it sometimes. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're able to witness it. Being a witness to grief, though, is hard because when you see other people grieving, it makes you think about your own grief. That's hard. And it's okay if that person can't witness your grief and needs to step away. That's okay. That happens. You're there to witness your grief. You can hire someone who's been trained, coach, therapist, to be able to deal with your grief, or who has done the work to learn about different grief. When I was working with Jen, I had my nose in a lot of resources about grief. A lot. And it also made me think about my grief. Okay. It's inevitable. This is the other thing I didn't tell you about what I said to Jen. It's inevitable. And this is the thing I said to her. The depth of your love can be the depth of your grief. It is inevitable. If you love, you will grieve. You will lose people. You will not have them physically close to you. You may lose friendships. You may get laid off from a job you love. You may, a home you love may burn down. Grief is inevitable. And I'm going to tell you, you can have it over anything. A lot of the people who I work with weight loss coaching have grief over not being able to use food the way they used to. They have to feel their feelings now because food is not a buffer. And that is a good thing because you are designed to feel your feelings, all of them. All of them. Okay. You may not believe it at first, but it will get better. You don't need to believe it. I want you for a minute to think about something that broke your heart. Something that broke your heart that you don't even think about anymore. It's not the forefront of your mind. You don't wake up thinking about it. Initially, when things happen, you wake up thinking about it. You wake up saying, oh my goodness. I wake up and then it's right here. It's right, I'm here. And the thing about the brain is it is unable to differentiate. If you have feelings and you have thoughts, the brain thinks it's actually happening. That's why when you wake up and you think about the person who passed away unexpectedly, you feel the profound loss because your brain cannot tell that it isn't happening right then. It's good for you to know, right? Your brain isn't always set up to help you. And in that particular situation, you talking back to it, as what I teach my clients, talk back to it and say, this is not happening. This is hard. I have my own back. I am loved. It's okay. I'm feeling this way. Let me allow it. What do I need? Do I need to take a walk? Do I need to laugh about a memory with the person? What do I need? Answering that question, what do I need? Okay. Yeah. And here's the last one. I was like, I really got through some stuff. I was going over my list. Here's the last one. You might just find yourself laughing. My dad, I can think of a trip we took to Virginia and we got apples. And we ate the apples and there was a lot of gas happening in the car. And that makes me laugh. I can think of my dad. Whenever I see rabbits, I think of my dad and him telling this story about Jack the rabbit. We would ride up to our house and there would always be a rabbit in the yard and he would tell these stories about Jack the rabbit. Or my dad would sing the song about a sugar shack. He had this picture in his study and there was, my grandfather now has that picture or had that picture. God rest his soul, he's passed on. And that picture was of this shack and he would call it the sugar shack and he would sing sugar shack, that's where that is at the sugar shack, right? My dad had a great laugh. My dad helped me learn how to ride a bike. He helped me learn my spelling words. He would come to lunch with me. You may find yourself laughing. You may find yourself thinking of a memory. Sometimes that might break your heart too. That memory feels so real, it feels so palpable, and they aren't here. And you might have to do what we talked about, cry. You may have to find someone to witness your grief. You may have to figure out where you are in the 7 stages of grief. You may have to realize you have to stop resisting it. You have to let that vulnerability come in. You may have to take all the time you need, and it is inevitable. So, yeah, this episode was necessary because, yeah, I'm seeing y'all lose people, and yeah, you might need some help walking through this. And yeah, I'm here for you. Okay. Reach out if you need me, kimarrington.com. If you click on that join the coaching waiting list, when there is an opening, myself or somebody on my team will reach out to you. Okay. I'm going to add in a little postscript. Damn, Kim, you done gave them so much. Okay. Watch your behaviors when you're grieving, because y'all know I'm a weight loss coach. Watch if you're overeating, overspending, over drinking, if you're being an angerholic. Watch what you're doing to push that grief away. Allow yourself, if you do what I told you in this episode, you won't have to push your grief away. Pushing the grief away is the problem. Resisting the grief is the problem. And using other things. I see this a lot in people who are grieving over marriages they don't want. Child. They begin drinking more, spending more, going out more, instead of them addressing that they don't want to be in that marriage anymore. Midlife produces a lot of people who become problem drinkers, who eat themselves into being in a place they don't want to be, who start smoking the ganja. Hey, y'all want to smoke the ganja? That's up to you. But anything I need to get through a day, I don't like that. That's anxiety preventing, and I don't like that. But hey, up to you. So I want you to notice if you have some of those behaviors, you got to go into your grief and see what's really going on and address that. That, my friends, is what I got to say about grief. I'm thinking about y'all. I'm sending y'all some love. I send out the covered heart to so many of you all when I see you going through things. Sometimes I send a little voice message. Sometimes I just say a little prayer. Sometimes I send positive energy. But give yourself the time you need and reach out if you need me. Okay? Have a good day. I'm glad I got to this one, y'all. Mwah.
Are you feeling what you just heard? Good, good. Repeat after me. You don't have to figure it out on your own again anymore. I'm here to help. Head over to kimarrington.com and download my free video series dedicated to getting you feeling your best right now. Look around, there's some good stuff waiting on you. Got questions? Well, we're always talking on the socials, so find me on YouTube, Insta, and the book. Don't be shy, y'all. Go listen to another episode or join me here the same time next week. Finally, don't keep good shit to yourself. Share this with a homie that could use some help too. Remember, we're not lying to ourselves anymore. We're not lying to our doctors. And you damn sure don't lie to your life coach.